A Formula One promise, a broken contract, and a legal battle worth over $20 million. What really happened between Alex Palou and McLaren? For the first time, the Spanish driver takes the stand to tell his side of the story, and the details are explosive, revealing secret conversations, allegedly broken promises, and the anger of watching his F1 dreams slip through his fingers. We're going to dive deep into this case that exposes the brutal, behind-the-scenes negotiations in the world of motorsports. The case unfolding in London's High Court is complex, but the central point is this. Alex Palou, the reigning IndyCar champion, alleges that McLaren promised him a future in Formula One, while the Woking-based team vehemently denies it and is demanding millions in compensation. In his testimony, Palou was direct in expressing how he felt when he discovered McLaren had signed Oscar Piastri for the seat he believed would be his. He stated he was very upset, worried, and angry. For Palou, there was no doubt. The only attraction to signing with McLaren was Formula One, which he described as his ultimate ambition as the top single-seater series in the world. However, Zak Brown, CEO of McLaren Racing, tells a completely different story. Brown stated in court that he never strung Alex along and never told him he would be considered for the 2023 season. According to the McLaren boss, the contract only offered optionality for F1, a Plan B if one of the full-time drivers was injured, or a Plan C if rookie Oscar Piastri failed to meet the team's expectations. In practice, it was a reserve role, a far cry from the promise Palou claims to have received. The situation gets even more tense when Palou reveals a contact he had with AlphaTauri. He recounts that in June 2023, he spoke on the phone with Helmut Marko, the powerful Red Bull advisor. Marko, according to Palou, was open to the possibility of having him on the team and asked about the conditions for his release from the McLaren contract. This is where the story takes a spy thriller turn. Palou alleges that his representative informed Zak Brown of the offer against his wishes. The result? Zak had directly called Helmut, and apparently Helmut had told Zak he was not interested anymore. I don't know what happened in that conversation, but for sure it didn't help, because suddenly Helmut was not interested anymore. On the other side of the dispute, McLaren details what it describes as immense damages caused by the Spaniard's breach of contract. The team is seeking $20.7 million. This amount includes $7.2 million for a forced renegotiation with sponsor NTT Data, $6.8 million in other sponsorship losses, $1.3 million to cover promoting driver Pato O'Ward to an F1-related role in Palou's absence, plus the return of a $400,000 signing bonus. Zak Brown used a powerful metaphor to describe the impact of Palou's decision, saying it was as if the driver had rolled a grenade into the room. This story is still unfolding, and we here at Formula News USA will continue to follow every detail for you. To not miss any updates on this case and everything else happening in the F1 universe, the best thing you can do is subscribe to the channel. If you're enjoying this in-depth analysis and want more content like it, please hit that like button. And since we're not a monetized channel, your subscription is incredibly important. It's the only way YouTube knows our content is valuable and shows it to more F1 fans. And please, comment below and let us know what city you're watching from. It's amazing for us to see how far our community reaches, and every single comment helps the algorithm recommend Formula News USA to more people just like us. Leaving the tension of the courtroom and returning to the equally intense pressure of the paddock, we now turn our attention to the future of a young driver fighting to establish himself on the Formula One grid. We're talking about Franco Colapinto. The 22-year-old Argentinian is having a season of extremes, and a recent statement from Inside Alpine might be exactly the boost he needed to secure his future in the sport. Let's analyze what's at stake for him and what this vote of confidence means in practice. Colapinto's Formula One career started promisingly. He debuted in the latter half of 2024 with Williams, replacing Logan Sargent, and impressed by scoring points in the Azerbaijan and United States Grands Prix. That performance caught the eye of Alpine, who signed him for the 2025 season. However, his journey with the French team has been much more challenging. This year, although he's finished every race he started, his best results have been two modest 13th place finishes in Monaco and Canada, far from the points. And we know how unforgiving Formula One is. A young driver has a very short window to prove their worth, especially when the car isn't competitive. With much of the grid for the upcoming seasons already being decided, Colapinto's options were starting to look slim, making his stay at Alpine almost vital for his future. It's in this uncertain scenario that the words of Steve Nielsen, Alpine's managing director, carry enormous weight. In a statement that serves as a welcome morale boost, Nielsen gave a positive assessment of the Argentinian's progress. He acknowledged that Franco had a difficult start, but highlighted a significant improvement. In the director's own words, Colapinto has now equalized and calmed down a little bit. He's now had the measure of Pierre in the last, I would say, 2 or 3 races, so he's on a par with him, which is good. This statement is no small thing. Coming from a team director, it's a huge public vote of confidence. In practice, it means that Alpine is seeing the progression they hoped for, even if the results on the scoreboard don't show it yet. For a team, a driver's learning curve and pace relative to an experienced teammate like Gasly are metrics that are just as, if not more, important than the final race position. Nielsen concluded by saying that the team is still a few races away from making a final decision on its driver lineup, but this positive analysis indicates that the door for Colapinto is more open than it seemed. The Argentinian's big bet is to secure that seat for the 2026 season, a year that, as we all know, promises to completely shake up the grid with the introduction of entirely new technical regulations. Staying with Alpine, even if the team isn't at its best right now, could be a golden ticket to a completely different future in Formula One, and Nielsen's assessment could be the decisive factor in him getting that ticket. Speaking of the future, let's now turn to the fight for the present, for the 2025 title. And at the center of it, we have a Max Verstappen who, against many predictions from the start of the season, is back in the conversation. After a difficult start to the year where McLaren seemed unbeatable, the 4-time world champion has put together a string of 2 wins and 2 second-place finishes in the last 4 races, closing the gap to the leaders. The big question hanging in the air is this comeback enough to dream of a 5th consecutive championship? Interestingly, the driver himself and an experienced former Grand Prix winner have very different views on the matter. Let's start with the perspective of the man inside the cockpit himself. Despite reducing the gap to leader Oscar Piastri to 63 points, Max Verstappen maintains a realistic, almost pessimistic view. In a direct statement, he said, "We are not catching up enough." It's interesting to hear this from the 4-time champion himself. Even with a streak of podiums, he has a very pragmatic outlook. For Max, it's not enough to finish second or win a race here and there. To overcome such a large deficit with only 6 rounds left, he would need to dominate, to win consistently, and he himself admits that Red Bull isn't at that level yet. He cited the Singapore Grand Prix as an example, where, despite finishing second, he complained about downshifting issues that made the car unpredictable. For him, the conclusion is clear: the team lost too many points at the beginning of the year. But while Max throws cold water on expectations, former driver Johnny Herbert refuses to rule him out. For Herbert, it would be a mistake to underestimate the Dutchman. He believes that if there's anyone on the current grid capable of pulling off what would be a true miracle, it's Verstappen. In Herbert's words, a comeback at this stage of the championship would be remarkable and would go down as one of the greatest Formula One comebacks. He points out that the key for Verstappen may lie not only in his own performance, but also in the dynamics of the rival team. Max's biggest chance, according to Herbert, is to have a bit of luck and for the McLaren drivers, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, to start taking points off each other in their internal title fight. Herbert also highlights an important technical point: Red Bull's clear improvement. He believes that the harmony that he, Verstappen, seems to have with the car at the moment is just what he's needed it to be. This improvement is largely attributed to a floor upgrade on the RB21 introduced at the Italian Grand Prix, which is exactly where Verstappen's recent run of good results began. So we have a fascinating puzzle. On one hand, the driver, who feels the car's difficulties and knows the scale of the challenge. On the other, an experienced analyst who sees the potential for an epic comeback, fueled by the driver's talent and the rivalry within the opposing team. Herbert also highlights an important technical point: Red Bull's clear improvement. He believes that the harmony that he, Verstappen, seems to have with the car at the moment is just what he's needed it to be. This improvement is largely attributed to a floor upgrade on the RB21, introduced at the Italian Grand Prix, which is exactly where Verstappen's recent run of good results began. So we have a fascinating puzzle. On one hand, the driver, who feels the car's difficulties and knows the scale of the challenge. On the other, an experienced analyst who sees the potential for an epic comeback, fueled by the driver's talent and the rivalry within the opposing team. And if the fight for the 2025 title is heating up, the game of musical chairs for 2026 is already boiling over behind the scenes at one of the most important teams on the grid, Mercedes. The Brackley-based team is one of the few that has yet to confirm its driver lineup for the new era of Formula One, and the reason for the delay appears to be a complex game of chess involving its star driver George Russell, the young talent Kimi Antonelli, and team boss Toto Wolff. Let's unravel the theories and rumors surrounding this negotiation. The first take on the situation comes from the experienced commentator and former driver Martin Brundle. For him, the delay isn't a sign of crisis, but of strategy. Brundle believes that Kimi Antonelli's seat for next year is practically guaranteed, especially after the Italian recovered from a mid-season slump and achieved strong results. His theory is that Mercedes is deliberately holding off on Antonelli until George Russell's new and complex contract is 100% finalized. The reason? To avoid a million questions about Russell's status, which would generate a wave of unnecessary speculation. This is a masterstroke in media management. Announcing both drivers together projects an image of stability and planning, avoiding weeks of a media circus that could destabilize the team. However, where there's smoke, there may be fire, and former driver Ralf Schumacher has brought a rumor that adds a lot more spice to this story. According to him, rumor has it that Russell no longer wants Toto Wolff as an advisor. This information, if true, is a bombshell. Schumacher speculates that Russell may have felt slighted and pushed aside earlier in the year when Mercedes was publicly flirting with Max Verstappen. This alleged dissatisfaction could have led the British driver to seek a restructuring of his professional relationship with the team and with Wolff, who has managed him since the junior categories. If this is true, we're talking about a seismic shift in the internal dynamics at Mercedes. Russell, now an established race winner and the de facto team leader on the track, would be seeking more independence, wanting to break free from the image of a Mercedes junior driver, a label that has followed him since the beginning of his career. In contrast to all this drama, Toto Wolff remains calm publicly. He praised Russell's formidable season, highlighting his controlled victory in Singapore as a sign of maturity. Regarding the contract, Wolff downplays it, stating that good things take a while and that the negotiation is only about the details. What we have at Mercedes, therefore, is a puzzle. On one hand, the official version, that everything is calm. On the other, rumors of a power struggle. The future of Mercedes may be the duo of Russell and Antonelli, but the road to get there seems far more turbulent than it appears. And with so many twists and turns in the courts, on the track, and behind the scenes, we want to know what you all think about this. Is Palou right to feel betrayed by McLaren? Can Verstappen still fight for this title? And what's your take on the supposed tension between Russell and Toto Wolff at Mercedes? Leave your theories in the comments below. And since Formula News USA is not a monetized channel, your support through subscribing and commenting is everything to us. It's the only fuel we have. Every subscription and every comment tells YouTube that this community is passionate and that our content deserves to be seen by more F1 fans around the world. So please, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share it with your friends. It makes a huge difference. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in the next one.